This video is for the spaghetti strap sample. So you will have this spaghetti strap block that came in the package of patterns at the beginning of the semester. It is printed on 2 separate pages, so make sure to paste it together, matching together that circle at the center. And then you're going to cut this out, making sure that your grain line is parallel to the selvage. So your pattern piece should actually be diagonal on your fabric as you cut, because this will be on the bias. And then we're going to cut all 4 edges of this piece with our straight shears, because we will need them for stitching in this exercise. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is fold this down the length, right sides together, and begin pinning it. Be careful not to stretch out your strip as you go. So I'm just folding it and I'm not pulling along as I go so that I don't stretch it out. Okay, now we're ready to head over to our sewing machine and stitch this. Okay, I'm going to start at one end and match up that raw edge with the 1/4 inch mark on my machine. This will be a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down. Back stitch to start. And then continue with your 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down the strip. Make sure to keep an eye on your raw edges over here and make sure that top and bottom layers stay even and that they don't shift on you. Now we're going to head over to our ironing board. Okay, now let's go ahead and trim our threads. And then we're going to grab our loop turner and we're going to use this tool to help us turn this right side out. So I'm going to go on one end of my sample. I'm going to trim those seam allowances on the corner at a diagonal. That's going to help me get started. And then at the other end, I'm going to put my loop turner through my tube until it comes all the way out the other end. And then you'll have this little hook with a clamp. So my little clamp, there we go. So this will clamp down onto your fabric. So the first thing we want to do is get that clamp open, allow our fabric to cover that clamp, and then that will actually pierce through our fabric. And then allow that clamp to close and your fabric to go inside that hook. So you're actually hooking onto your fabric. Now at this point, you're gonna start pulling down and pushing your tube up so that that hook is pulling the raw edges of your fabric inside the tube. The hardest part of this sample is just getting started. That's part of the reason that we trimmed off that corner so that it's not so bulky at the end where we're trying to get started. So once you start pulling down on this, you do not want to push back up at all with your loop turner, because if you push back up, it's going to unhook on you. So start pulling down and try very hard not to push back up. And like I said, the hardest part is going to be getting started. There we go. Once I get over that lump, now I can keep pushing little bits of my tube up at a time as I pull down on my loop turner. So push up with the fabric, pull down with the loop turner. And then once you get it out the end, you can unhook it and you can just grab that end and continue to turn it right side out. There we go. And there's our finished spaghetti strap. Typically we leave it full like this so that it's more like a tube rather than pressing it down flat. So if this was a spaghetti strap on a dress or something like that, we would leave these ends raw and we would sew those into the neckline of the dress. But if you're using this as, let's say, a waist like tie, to cinch in a dress or something like that, or a tie around the neck of a blouse, then you would need to finish the raw edges of these samples. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can tie a knot and have that be the finished end. You can flip those raw edges in. So you would have to push those raw edges into your fabric. So grab a pin or something and it'll help you push those raw edges in and then stitch across the end of your sample. So that's one way to finish the end of your tie. But for our sample, we're just gonna go ahead and leave these ends raw since we're doing this as if it was a spaghetti strap for a dress, and those would get stitched into another seam. So that is the finished spaghetti strap sample.